Story 1. He knew what I was going to wear before I chose it. This happened to me in 2017, right after I moved into a new apartment outside of Baltimore. I had just started a new job at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. I was 28 at the time, living alone for the first time since college. The apartment was small, one bedroom, top floor, decent view of the street. Clean but impersonal. I didn't decorate much, just a couple prints, a lamp, and a reading chair by the window. Most of my days followed the same rhythm. I'd take the light rail at 7:25, walk 3 blocks, grab coffee at the same place, always the same barista. At 5:45, I was usually on my way back, listening to the same podcast, scrolling on my phone. On weekends, I'd either stay in, grocery shop, or visit my sister. I was, without realizing it, deeply predictable. It started small. I remember the first time I noticed it, though I didn't know what I was noticing. I was halfway through getting dressed one morning, blouse and skirt laid out, jewelry still undecided. I checked my phone. There was a text from an unknown number. The green sweater works better. I didn't own a green sweater. At least, I didn't think I did. But when I opened my closet, there it was, folded neatly on the top shelf. One I must have packed from college and forgotten about. I chalked it up to a prank, maybe a co-worker. I didn't tell anyone. A few days later, I got another text. "Skip the train. You're not going to make it." That morning, a mechanical failure had delayed the line I always took. My usual train never arrived, and somehow, I wasn't surprised. I hadn't told anyone about my route. I didn't use location sharing. I don't post online. My life wasn't public, but whoever it was knew when I left, where I stopped, and even how long I stood at the bus stop when the train didn't show. I started to pay attention to every text. They came at odd intervals. Never a flood, just enough to avoid panic, always specific, always right. Sometimes I'd wake up and see, "You'll be late if you wear heels today. You're going to forget your ID again." The messages weren't threatening, not directly, but they were invasive in a way that's hard to explain. Not surveillance, prediction. They weren't watching, they were anticipating. As if they understood the way my mind shifted in the morning, how I made choices in a split second, but thought they were spontaneous. I tried ignoring it. I blocked the number. New ones would replace it. Always the same tone, never emojis, never names. Always typed like they knew me better than I knew myself. I told a co-worker eventually. She laughed it off. "Maybe it's your subconscious," she said. "You probably left the green sweater out the night before and forgot." But I hadn't. At night, I started changing my route home. I'd walk 4 blocks, turn twice, take the longer train. The texts adapted. "You like this side street better. The elm trees remind you of high school." They were right. It wasn't just what I did. It was how I thought. The way I paused before decisions, the brief moment of hesitation. They'd catch that. "You won't buy those blueberries. Not today. They're overpriced." They knew what I would decide before I decided. I tested it one day. Stood in front of a cafe I'd never been to. I reached for the door, then turned away, unsure. A message buzzed. "You don't like change. That's okay." There were no threats, no mentions of violence, but I stopped sleeping. One morning, I got a text that said, "You're going to miss the deadline on that Henderson pitch. Don't worry, you'll lie about traffic." I hadn't even remembered the pitch yet. When I checked my planner, there it was, due at 9. It was 8:42. Whoever they were, they knew my life with a precision that didn't make sense. Not GPS, not cameras, something deeper, something internal. By mid-March, I wasn't making decisions anymore. I was checking my phone to see what I'd already chosen. The next week, I did something stupid. I tried to be unpredictable. I left the apartment without brushing my teeth. I walked a different direction, not just altered, but nonsense. I took 3 lefts, doubled back, pretended to check my watch and ducked into a bookstore I'd never noticed. I didn't buy anything. I just stood there. The text came in while I was pretending to browse. "You're not spontaneous, but that's okay. You're trying." That night I ordered Thai food. I've never eaten Thai. I can't handle spice. I ate it anyway, crying into a napkin. No message. For 2 hours, nothing. Then at 10:01 p.m., red curry. Bold. You'll regret that. I did. I threw up around midnight. The messages began adjusting to my erratic behavior, not just reacting, rehearsing. One night, I dropped my phone off at a co-worker's apartment and walked the city for 4 hours with a burner I bought in cash. At 2:17 a.m., it buzzed. This is you breaking pattern. We liked that about you before. I threw the phone in a river. 2 days later, a note was slipped under my door. Patterns are easier when you're tired. It wasn't handwritten, it was typed, clean. No signature. I ran to the building manager. She hadn't seen anyone. The cameras were down for maintenance. I started logging everything. Times I woke up, meals I skipped, random choices. I set timers for things I would never do. Brushing my teeth at 3:05, making coffee at 9:14 p.m., unplugging my fridge for an hour. The messages kept up. You'll fall back into your rhythm by Thursday. And I did. The scary part wasn't that I was being followed, it was that I was being simulated. Like someone was playing a version of me just a second ahead, testing choices, observing, and then texting the outcome. I went to the police, filed a report. The officer asked if I had an ex. I said no. He asked if I'd been posting on social media. I hadn't posted in over a year. He said they'd look into it, but there was no crime, no threat, just prediction. At work, my boss asked if I was okay. She said I looked off. I wanted to scream. How do you explain that your sense of self has been mirrored so closely you're starting to believe you're not the original? That week, I received a text. You used to trust your instincts. I found something online. A deep dive forum, not public, but accessible through layers of obscurity. The topic was obscure psychological stalking tactics. Not cameras, not GPS, but mimicry. Someone posted a thread titled, "They know before you know." The phrase sent chills down my spine. There were other people, not many, maybe 5 or 6, each describing the same experience in different words. One woman in Ohio said she changed her walk to work every day, changed her hairstyle, bought new glasses. Her stalker still sent a message saying, "You'll stop wearing the new frames. They don't feel like you." Another user described it as a behavioral copy, like someone was running a digital version of their habits based on patterns, using typing cadence, morning order, favorite utensils, the way their voice paused before certain words. It wasn't just stalking, it was identity simulation. There was a term used, anticipatory manipulator, a person who doesn't need to follow you. They just study enough fragments to build a predictive model, a shadow version. You don't see them because they're already a step ahead, not in space, but in thought. In April, I moved, left the state, changed my name, bought an old Nokia from a pawn shop and refused to sign up for anything. No subscriptions, no accounts. I stayed with my cousin for a month, then found a small apartment in Michigan, low-rise, sparse. I used cash for everything, even wore a wig the first few weeks. It felt like relief, like a new script was finally being written. The first 2 weeks were silent. Then one morning I walked out my front door and looked up. A billboard across the street. Hadn't noticed it before. White background, black text. Still you, no logo, no product. Just those 2 words. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stood there. It wasn't about knowing where I lived. It was about proving that they knew who I was, and no matter where I went. And somewhere, maybe even now, someone is sitting at a screen watching nothing. Because they already know what I'm about to do. I've stopped trying to surprise them, but I leave the lights on at night, just in case. Story 2. I only saw him in reflections, but he was always behind me. This happened to me in late 2019. Right after I moved into a studio apartment in a part of Portland that most people described as quiet but transitional. It was the kind of place where the walls were thin, the halls always smelled faintly of something cooked 3 nights ago, and the mirror in the main room came bolted to the wall, a long, narrow panel above a fake wood dresser. I'd never liked mirrors. I don't mean I was superstitious, I just didn't like seeing myself when I didn't expect it. I'd get dressed with the lights off just to avoid catching a glimpse of my own face before coffee. But the mirror in that apartment was unavoidable. It stretched nearly 6 feet, and the light from the overhead bulb hit it just right, so that even from bed, I could see myself sitting up. The first time I noticed anything strange, it was during a late night. I'd had trouble sleeping and was sitting on the edge of the bed scrolling through my phone. I looked up and saw myself in the mirror, same posture, same phone in hand, but something looked off. The reflection was delayed. Not a lot, just a fraction of a second. Like a buffering live stream. I blinked, she blinked, but it was slightly after. I chalked it up to sleep deprivation, got up, walked to the bathroom. Didn't think much of it. But the next night, I saw it again. This time, I sat perfectly still and stared for minutes. My reflection stared back. I tried raising my left hand. My reflection raised the right. That made sense, I thought. Mirror image. But then I moved to stand. I watched myself rise. It was identical. Except, and I swear this, when I sat back down, I saw something in the background of the reflection. A shape, a blur, behind me. I turned around. Nothing. I checked behind the bed, in the closet, even under the dresser. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I bought a tripod from a discount electronics store and set up my phone to record, just to check. I positioned it to face the mirror and hit record. I sat on the edge of the bed again, like before, looked into the mirror. Nothing out of the ordinary. I left it recording for 10 minutes. Then I reviewed the footage. The first 8 minutes were normal. At 08:12, I leaned forward in both the real and reflected world. At 8:13, I stood up and walked out of frame. On the recording, my reflection did the same, except it didn't leave. In one frame, you can freeze it. I step out of the mirror, but the reflection just stays there, standing, still. My reflection doesn't follow. It just keeps watching the camera. Head tilted slightly, like it expected me to leave. I don't know how long I stared at that freeze frame. I don't remember breathing. I tried showing a friend. She told me maybe the video glitched. Maybe it froze during compression. I knew better. The next night I kept the lights off, just the glow of the city coming in from the blinds. I sat across from the mirror again. No phone, just me, watching. This time, the reflection smiled. Not a big smile, barely noticeable, but I didn't smile. After that, I covered the mirror. An old sheet, duct-taped at the corners. It looked ridiculous, but it helped, for a few days, until I saw him somewhere else. I was sitting at my desk at work, staring into my mug. The surface of the tea had gone still, just a small golden circle. I saw my face, and behind me, a shadow. No detail, just a dark shape, slightly out of proportion. Too tall, arms close to the sides, head slightly off-center. I turned around, empty office. I stared at the tea until it rippled from my breath. The next day, I started noticing reflections everywhere. In the glass frame above the copier, in a puddle outside my bus stop, even in the eyes of the person sitting across from me on the train. A faint, warped echo of my own expression, and just behind it, a form. By the end of the week, I couldn't look at anything that could reflect. I wore sunglasses indoors. I turned off my monitor at work. I even stopped brushing my teeth in front of the mirror. Everything was covered, towels, foil, cloth, paint. My apartment looked like someone preparing for an exorcism. Still, he showed up. I saw him in my co-worker's glasses. We were in a meeting, and she leaned forward. I looked straight into the lens of her frames and saw 2 reflections, hers and mine, and a third behind me. He didn't move, but something shifted in my peripheral vision. like air pulling to one side. That night I dreamed of a mirror without glass, just a frame. I stood in front of it, but my reflection was still there, staring, and I wasn't moving. In the dream, he finally blinked, and I didn't. I woke up at 3:14 a.m. The sheet had fallen from the mirror. It lay crumpled on the floor, like it had been pulled, not fallen. The mirror was fogged, like breath on glass. I didn't want to approach it, but I did. No reflection, just glass. For the first time, I felt like I didn't exist in that space, like whatever had been watching finally took my place. I moved out of that apartment 2 weeks later, found a sublet in another part of town. No mirrors, no windows that could reflect inside. It followed. I found a paper online through a medical journal database. It wasn't mainstream, more of a fringe psychological research study. The topic was non-visual stalking and reflective projection. It described something called mirror-bound presence. The paper claimed that certain stalkers, typically obsessed with identity, project themselves into the visual delay field, a term I hadn't heard before. The delay between action and reflection, the brain's interpretation of what is real versus what is imaged. The researchers suggested that some individuals learn to inhabit that space psychologically, not by physically being present, but by symbolically occupying reflections associated with the victim's image. The kicker was that many of the subjects didn't report being watched in real life. They reported being mirrored, not followed, but echoed. I read every word of that paper 3 times. I wasn't crazy, or if I was, others were too. There was even a case study of a woman who smashed every mirror in her home after seeing an unblinking face in her oven door. When she did, the police came. Not because of the mirror, but because her upstairs neighbor had filed a complaint. He said he saw someone in her apartment, standing behind her, and she lived alone. That was when I started breaking things. First, the old dresser mirror, then a handheld compact, then the microwave door. One by one, I shattered every surface that could hold an image. I wore a hoodie with the hood up, refused to make eye contact in windows, even unplugged my TV. One night, I went through the apartment for the final time. Only one thing left, a small mirror built into the back of my closet. I'd forgotten it, hidden behind coats. I stood in front of it. It was empty. Then, slowly, I saw a shadow rise. Not from behind me, from within. The mirror began fogging, but I wasn't breathing. I lifted the hammer, smashed it, glass fell like frost from the wall, a quiet collapse, silence, and then I heard it. A footstep behind me, not mine. I turned slowly, no one there. But the floor creaked again, from the hallway. Then again, closer. I locked the door, called a friend, stayed on the phone until morning. She stayed with me for a few nights. Nothing happened. The noise stopped. But then, 3 days later, I found something. On my phone, a photo, time-stamped at 3:12 a.m. A blurry, low-light shot of me, asleep in bed, taken from the corner of the room, and in the window behind the bed a faint reflection of a man. But I wasn't facing that direction, so the reflection shouldn't exist. I deleted the photo, then deleted the backups, then smashed the phone. But sometimes, when I walk past glass at night, I still see something. Not always a figure, sometimes just a shape. But it's not the fear of being watched anymore. It's the fear that I'm watching from the wrong side. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Story 3. He never followed me, but he always showed up where I felt weakest. This happened in 2022. I was 31, still trying to rebuild after a long period of unraveling. My father had passed away a year before, and I'd left a relationship shortly after. Not a violent one, just hollow. I moved into a basement apartment in Milwaukee. Cheap rent, mold near the corners, creaky stairs, but private. I don't remember the exact first moment I noticed him. That's the strange part. It wasn't an event. It was a feeling. I'd be at my lowest, staring at nothing, head in my hands, or lying in bed listening to old voicemails I couldn't delete. And I'd feel it. Presence. Not watching. Answering. I mentioned it to a few people, that I kept getting the feeling someone was responding to my sadness, not feeding off it, not comforting it, just showing up, emotionally, quietly. Like he knew when I was most defenseless. My friends didn't get it. I don't blame them. One night I was staying with my friend Daniel. We'd been out drinking and I crashed on his couch. Sometime after 1 a.m. I started spiraling. No reason, just the way your brain folds in on itself when it's had too much. I was staring at the ceiling when Daniel walked in and asked if I was okay. I said something like, "I feel like he's here again." Daniel stopped. His face dropped, not scared, confused. He looked at me, then past me. "There's someone smiling at you," he said, "from the reflection in your tears." I didn't understand what he meant. I wiped my eyes. He snapped out of it, said he was drunk, didn't remember saying anything. But that night I sat in the bathroom and cried. I looked into the small mirror over the sink. I saw no one else there, but I felt less alone, and not in a good way. After that night I started testing it. Not because I believed anything, but because I had to know. I started logging the moments I felt the presence, always emotional, never spatial. If I was distracted, cooking, reading, listening to music, nothing. But if I was vulnerable, even briefly, I'd get the sensation, a kind of warmth, like breath close to the back of my neck. Not wind, not air, just nearness. I ran an experiment. I recorded myself speaking to my father's voicemail, the one I never deleted, even after his line was shut down. Then I played it back. I stared at the floor and let myself fall into the words, the silence between them, a knock. I froze. I live in a locked building, 3 units total. No one knocks without calling. I got up and opened the door. No one. Just a small rectangular object on the welcome mat, a pocket-sized recorder, the kind that old journalists used, cheap, plastic, still warm. I didn't play it at first. I just brought it inside and left it on the counter. I told Daniel. He didn't laugh. Just said, "This is why you shouldn't be alone right now." That night I finally pressed play. It was my voice, but not the recording I'd made. It was me, crying, but saying things I hadn't said aloud in years. Things I thought privately, word for word. I stopped the tape, then deleted every voicemail I had, erased everything, unplugged my router, shut down every account. The next night the knock came again. This time nothing was left behind, but I felt something change in the apartment. A shift in temperature, and for the first time in weeks, I heard my name spoken aloud, not from behind, from within, like the echo of a thought that wasn't mine. I reached out to someone I found online, a researcher who specialized in trauma mimicry and empathic invasion, fringe stuff. He replied within hours, said I wasn't alone. He described something called affective parasitism. The idea that certain individuals don't follow people physically, they bond to vulnerability, to the emotional shape a person makes when they collapse. The theory goes, if someone feels that shape deeply enough, maybe from shared trauma or obsessive empathy, they can find it, even when they're not looking. And once they've found someone who matches, they don't chase, they wait, until the sadness returns, and then they move in, not into the space, into the feeling. It's not supernatural, he said. It's proximity by permission. I asked him how to stop it. He told me the only known solution was complete emotional disconnection, not numbing, but cutting off the frequency that invites them in. I asked what happened if you couldn't. He said simply, then they become part of you. Weeks passed. The presence grew quieter, not absent, just more embedded. I stopped crying, but I started hearing him in my thoughts. Not a voice, just framing, as if the way I felt was being narrated from somewhere else. Detached, but familiar. One night, after a hard day, nothing special, just work stress, loneliness, I sat on the curb outside a corner store and stared into a puddle. It had rained. I saw my reflection, broken by droplets. And then, behind me, another. I turned. No one. I looked back into the puddle. He was still there, still smiling. Then, and I swear this happened, the reflection spoke, but not in his voice, in mine. It said, "We were always the same." I just admitted it first. I don't remember how I got home. I just remember sitting in the shower with the water off, trying to make myself feel nothing. That was months ago. I haven't felt him since. But sometimes when I cry and catch myself in a window, I feel a kind of permission rise in me, like something waiting to be invited back. So I don't cry anymore, not because I'm healed, because I'm not alone when I do.